Let us come together as one to affirm the peace and justice that we hope for this world on this, the 75th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima. If only another way had been found to end the Second World War in the Pacific, more than 100,000 lives could have been saved. Good morning and welcome to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Prescott, Arizona. I'm Marianne Erickson, Stewardship Chair and your Worship Associate today. We extend a warm welcome to all. We are really glad that you're able to join us, and we hope you are happy and in good health. We want to stay connected, so please join us for the breakout rooms after the service. This will give us time to chat with members and friends in small groups. If you are joining us for the first time, please check out our website for more information about Granite Peak at prescottuu.org. This is the mission statement of our congregation. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. We extend our thanks today to all who contributed to the presentation of our service. Our guest speaker, Alex Kapitan, Heather Knowles for technical direction, and Janine Galsinger for her expert help and for lighting the chalice. Our announcements are very important, of course. Although we are physically apart, we are still in community, and we continue with some of our meetings and activities via the internet. So please continue to check the Weekly Peak email newsletter, our website, and our Facebook page for announcements. And join our regular Zoom meetings each week. The Wednesday Granite Peak Politics and Religion Forum at 10 a.m. and the Friday lunch with Reverend Patty Willis at noon. You will find connection information and other announcements in our order of service today. The Children's Faith Development meeting will not be conducted today due to staff illness. Reverend Patty will be at the congregation's backyard at 3 p.m. today for conversation in a physically distanced way, of course. She has returned to Prescott following her leave, and she will be in the pulpit next Sunday. Please remember our at-risk members and friends during Joys and Concerns, and contact Nancy Beeson if you are in need of any help from the caring team. Janine Galsinger, Executive Director of UU Justice Arizona, known as UU Jazz, has an announcement.
Hello, Granite Peak. I'm so happy to be with you again and in such a short amount of time. Thanks for having me. And I am thrilled about today's service from Alex Kapitan, a good friend of mine and an amazing faith leader in Unitarian Universalism. Z used to work for the UUA at the Welcoming Congregations program and in the Office of Multicultural Ministries, and now leads a group called Transforming Hearts Collective. Many Granite Peakers have taken the Trans Inclusion and Congregations course that Alex leads and will be familiar when you see her today. And for many of you, Alex will be a new speaker, and so we invite you to look into the course that so many of us were able to enjoy over the last 6 weeks. Today's service is also part of your Welcoming Congregations renewal. Each year, the UUA invites congregations to renew their Welcoming Congregations commitment by doing 5 things, and UU Jazz has committed to helping congregations in Arizona through that annually. This year, Granite Peak has already done 4 out of the 5 things needed, and this service is one of the 2 services per year that count towards that commitment of renewal. Thank you for always striving to be a welcoming congregation.
And now Janine will light the chalice for this morning's service, and then we will listen to Alex Kapitan give the chalice lighting words. Alex's words of gathering will follow the chalice lighting.
Our chalice lighting this morning is an excerpt from Dreaming the Dark by Starhawk. Somewhere, there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere, a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing. A circle of friends. Someplace where we can be free. I'm so delighted to be with you this morning, and I'm so thankful to UU Justice Arizona for the invitation to be part of this special worship service. Today, here in this time, when we are creating a virtual sacred space together, when we are gathering from different physical, spiritual, emotional, and ancestral locations, it feels important to locate myself and invite you to reflect on your location as well. I'm joining you today from my home near the Great Falls. I live where the river the Abenaki peoples call Quinnitigak, or Long River, meets the Mohawk Trail, in the place called Peskiamskut by the Pecumtuck Nation, and Greenfield, Massachusetts by white settlers, not far from the invisible corner where Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire meet. My ancestors have lived in this river valley and in eastern Massachusetts and in German colonized Wisconsin farmland and in the steel mills of Ohio, and before that, Germany, Hungary, and England. Their names were Kapitania, Bergdorf, Daniel, Pierce, Orange. I come from preachers and farmers and engineers and artists and teachers. I have other ancestors and elders who have made it possible for me to be here today too. As a queer and genderqueer person, I would not be here without generations of people before me who resisted oppressive norms of gender and sexuality and imagined a different reality into being. Their names were and are Feinberg, Bornstein, Murray, Johnson, Rivera, De La Verre, Kramer. And finally, I follow in the path of white anti-racism organizers, educators, and activists. Braden, Liuzo, Reeb, Okun, Spade. I want to invite you to take a moment and join me in speaking your ancestors and elders into this space. The people, those living and those who have passed on, who forged a path that has made your life possible. Say their names, remain muted, but speak their names into the space and type their names into the chat box as well if that feels good to you. Thank you for that. Feel the power of all those souls that have brought each of us to this place. We are part of a larger fabric, held in a larger web and purpose. Let us worship together.
Well, let me apologize to Heather for beginning to introduce the opening hymn at the wrong time. I will admit my humanity uh, with and beg your understanding. From our teal hymnal, here comes the choir of Orange Coast UU congregation singing number 1003, Where Do We Come From? And now please join me in saying our covenant, the words of which will appear on the screen in a moment. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, thus do we covenant together. Now here comes the Time for All Ages story of Bat with Alex on video.
So I have a story for you this morning, and it's called The Story of Bat, and I wrote it myself. You ready? All right, here we go. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, in a faraway land, a terrible fight broke out between the mammals and the birds. Now, as you might know, mammals are all the animals that are furry and have teeth and carry their babies inside them until they're born. And birds are all the animals that can fly and have beaks or bills and lay eggs in nests, right? You see, the mammals didn't trust the birds, and the birds didn't trust the mammals. They were just so different from one another that they didn't understand each other. The mammals didn't know what it was like to see the world from way up above, and the birds didn't know what it was like to be covered in fur instead of fluffy feathers. So the birds and the mammals started to fight. But there was one animal who didn't understand the fighting. It was Bat. Now, Bat couldn't pick a side in the fight because Bat felt like she was a little of both. After all, bats are furry and have teeth, yet they also have wings and can fly. Bat was friends with both birds and mammals. She would go flying with her bird friends and snuggle with her furry mammal friends. When the fight broke out, Bat was really sad. She went to both the birds and the mammals and begged them to stop the violence. "Don't you see?" she said to the other animals. "You're not that different from each other. We all feel love and hunger and pain. Look at me," she said. "I can fly, yet I'm also furry. I'm proof that there's no real divide between mammal and bird." But the other animals wouldn't listen. They had been told all their lives that birds and mammals had nothing in common. They had been taught to fear one another. "Pick a side and stay there," Tiger said at the mammals' camp. "Stop pretending to be something you're not. What are you really?" Eagle screeched the next day at the birds' camp. "I am both and neither," Bat said. But that was inconceivable to the other animals. Even her bird and mammal friends laughed in Bat's face, made fun of her, pushed her aside, and kept fighting each other. At first, Bat was too sad to do anything more. But then she realized there were other animals like her, animals that were different from the others. Who do you think she went and found? She went and found Platypus. Platypus is amazing. Platypus has a bill like a bird and lays eggs like a bird, right? But platypus is also furry and has no wings like a mammal. Bat also found flying squirrel, who's furry yet flies through the air. Bat, platypus, and flying squirrel went and found ostrich and penguin and kiwi, who are birds that can't fly, so they weren't part of the fighting. Now, There were more animals, look at them all, who could help the mammals and the birds understand that not all birds are the same, right? And not all mammals are the same, and they should stop fighting and get to know each other better. It was hard, but the other animals finally listened and stopped fighting. They started realizing how amazing it was that there were so many differences among them, that birds can be as small as tiny hummingbird or as massive as albatross. And mammals can have tusks like elephant or the softest fur like bunny. And there were also some ways that some birds and mammals were more similar to each other than to their own kind. Owl and hedgehog realized they both like staying awake at night. And loon and otter realized they both loved the water. Eventually, everyone forgot that it had been Bat, who was the bravest one of all and had stopped the fighting. And that was just fine with Bat. What mattered most to her was that all the animals were at peace and that she had made a whole bunch of new friends like her who were different in the coolest ways. The end.
Adapted from words by Jennifer Grayson for Joys and Sorrows. In our community, we make time each week to share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because each person in this community has value. Each person's experience matters. We share our sorrows with one another, knowing that sorrow comes into each person's life, knowing that together we offer comfort. We also share our joys with one another, knowing too that joy comes into our lives, knowing that together our voices can rise in a chorus of celebration. We delight in knowing that Daryl Levi's surgery this past week went well and that he is healing at home. And we celebrate with Faith Development Coordinator Bev Bostrom her good report that her knee replacement is fully functional and she will not need to check in with her surgeon for a year. Unfortunately, this morning she had a very, very bad headache. So we need to keep her in our thoughts and prayers. We are saddened by the temporary loss of the company of Granite Peak folks like Richard Maurer, Edna McGlure, Charlotte Skews, Taya Park, and others who don't have Zoom capability. But we are grateful that some of you have been calling and looking in on these folks and sharing some quality time with them. Now, please share with me our choral response. We'll sing it twice through, and if you sing loudly, you won't hear that I am not a very good singer. Walking, walking with you is our prayer. Walking, walking with you is our prayer. This is the time in our service when we normally gather the offering in the sanctuary. Let us embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather each week. Let us remember that this congregation and its programs are supported by your generosity. And we also give back to the greater community through our Seeds of Support program. During the month of August, our recipient is the Empty Bowls Project that will be operated by our congregation and our sister congregation, PUF, in a hybrid format this year due to the pandemic. So hybrid in this case means that purchases will be made online and items will be picked up in person through a drive-through in the parking lot. Please read about the changed plan this year for Empty Bowls in the order of service and check out the website that will be allowing for online ordering of bowls, submission of silent auction items, and donations to address the current increased food shortages in the Quad City area. To give during this distance time, please go to prescottuu.org. On the bottom left-hand side of the website, click the word donate to contribute via PayPal. The link is also available in the chat on this video. Please note that in the comment box or the memo line, if you mail a check, if your funds are for your pledge, seeds of support, or a donation to Granite Peak. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be. Please enjoy the offertory music, True Colors, performed by Artists Against Bullying. Now we will watch This Is Me. Pardon me. Next is a reading by Alex called Marginal Wisdom by Reverend Leslie Takahashi.
Our reading this morning is by Reverend Leslie Takahashi from the book Voices from the Margin, edited by Reverend Jackie James and Reverend Mark D. Morrison Reed. And it's called Marginal Wisdom. They teach us to read in black and white. Truth is this, the rest, false. You are whole or broken. Who you love is acceptable or not. Life tells its truth in many hues, but we are taught to think in either or, to believe the teachings of Jesus or Buddha, to believe in human potential or a power beyond a single will. I am broken or I am powerful. Life embraces multiple truths, speaks of both and of and. We are taught to see in absolutes, good versus evil, male versus female, old versus young, gay versus straight. Let us see the fractions, the spectrum, the margins. Let us open our hearts to the complexity of our worlds. Let us make our lives sanctuaries to nurture our many identities. The day is coming when all will know that the rainbow world is more gorgeous than monochrome, that a river of identities can ebb and flow over the static, stubborn rocks in its course, that the margins hold the center.
Now we will watch This Is Me, a very powerful musical and colorful video by Keela, Seattle. Alex's message to us about radical welcome and transformational culture change is coming up next.
Hello again, everyone. Thank you again for welcoming me into your virtual sanctuary this morning, and for the gift of getting to share this space today. Earlier, I named some of the ancestors and elders who made it possible for me to be here. It's important for me to tell you that I wouldn't be here without Unitarian Universalism either. My parents joined a UU church in a suburb of Milwaukee when I was 6. My dad is the son and grandson of Presbyterian ministers, and my mom was raised a devout atheist in small town Wisconsin. The family joke is that when they became UU, my dad's family all said, "Oh no, he's lost religion." And my mom's family all said, "Oh no, she's found religion." I think that says it all about this wonderful faith of ours. I'm so grateful that my parents joined my home church. It was a wonderful place to grow up. I gained an open-hearted curiosity for all the different religious paths and truths that people hold. I was taught to honor my own truth, even, or perhaps especially, when that truth was different than what was expected. I internalized the idea that living our faith meant working to make the world a better place and fighting for those who are oppressed. And as a queer and trans person, I was able to grow up without any sense that these deep truths about myself were at odds with my faith. my queer, trans, stubborn as heck teenage UU self was saved by Unitarian Universalism. As UU youth, we radicalized each other, exploring who we could be if we helped each other actively resist racism, heterosexism, and other oppressions. We created worship together in ways that were embodied and truly helped me feel the power of unconditional love. It was magic. In fact, I credit being raised UU to a large degree with my ability to be the person I am today. My full, authentic, queer, gender fluid, flamboyantly masculine and feminine all at one time, neither here nor there, Mary Martin as Peter Pan, bow tie flashing, motorcycle riding, roller derby playing, BOI boy self. And yet, even though I was raised here, in Unitarian Universalism, even though this religion has given me so much, I have never found a congregational home. You see, not actively making it harder for me to be myself in the world was not enough for me to feel a sense of unconditional welcome and belonging in my church as I grew into adulthood. Nor have I ever felt that way in any of the dozens of UU congregations I've been to since. I've never found a UU congregation where I felt like my lived experience of Unitarian Universalism as a queer, trans, raised UU was reflected and honored. I am one of the 72% of trans UUs who do not feel as though UU congregations are fully inclusive of us. 72%. My chosen family, my closest loved ones, include disabled trans people of color, and working class trans people. But only 20% of disabled trans UUs feel fully included in our congregations. Only 15% of trans UUs of color feel fully included. And only 11% of the most financially vulnerable trans UUs feel fully included. And this is no small thing because trans people and trans UUs are more likely to be disabled, people of color, and low income. My friends, my heart is heavy because I don't want to just find a home myself. I want Unitarian Universalism to be the saving power in my people's lives that I know it can be. I want to be able to tell Black trans women and struggling queer young adults and LGBTQ refugees and asylum seekers that they can go to their local UU congregation in person or online and find healing and strength and resilience to keep up the fight for survival in a culture that's trying to annihilate them. But I can't. Because I can't trust that their local congregation will even be safe for them, much less a place of resilience. Can you hold this heaviness with me? Whenever I share my story about how I've never found a home in Unitarian Universalism, there are always people listening who think, that's just because you haven't tried our church yet. So if that's you, I see you. And I deeply believe, I truly do, that this church, this wonderful community of yours, deeply wants to be a place where I and my chosen family feel welcome. Am I right? I wouldn't be here today if that weren't true. But I need you to help me hold my heavy heart at the fact that for the entire 30 years that I have been a UU, ever since my parents joined my home church when I was 6 in 1991, Unitarian Universalism has told the world and has told me that LGBTQ people are welcome here. But that entire time, I have experienced that welcome as conditional. My whole life, I've known that I could attend any UU congregation and not be actively rejected, as long as I wore certain clothes and said certain things and acted in a certain way. I've known that because I'm white and college educated and able-bodied, I can appear to fit in a way that so many of my people can't. I've known that because of this, people would be friendly to me. But that's not the welcome I need. I need a welcome that goes beyond friendliness, goes beyond tolerance or acceptance. I need a welcome that isn't conditional. I need a welcome that's celebratory, a welcome that transforms hearts, yours and mine. And here's the thing. I know I'm not the only one here who is yearning for this sort of welcome. I know I'm not the only one here who has felt the saving power of Unitarian Universalism to transform hearts, remind us of our interconnectedness, and support us in loving one another across lines of difference. I know I'm not the only one here who has felt the need to leave certain parts of yourself behind, who has felt pressured to look or talk or act in ways that make you appear to fit in order to feel welcome here. You see, I'm not just in the ministry of welcome for myself and my chosen family. I'm in it for you, all of you, because I know that in order to survive this world, this dominant US culture of division and hatred and violence and environmental destruction, we need spaces like this one to be more than simply friendly. We need spaces like this one to be places where we can unlearn the judgments and assumptions and biases that have soaked into us from the outside world, and practice healing the divisions that are tearing our communities and our world and our very souls apart. My Unitarian Universalism is not a community where we are all the same and we get to relax on Sunday knowing that everyone else is just like us here, a collection of the good ones who have all the answers. My Unitarian Universalism is a community where we are all different, and we take joy in learning about each other and sharing in our different ways of making meaning, and we care for one another and one another's people, and we never stop asking questions. My Unitarian Universalism is a community where none of us feel like we have to leave any parts of ourselves behind. This is why my best friend, Reverend Michael Slack, and I created the course that this congregation has access to thanks to UU Justice Arizona. UU Jazz received a grant from the UU funding program that allowed them to purchase this course for you and every other congregation in Arizona, which is amazing. The course is called Trans Inclusion in Congregations, but it's about so much more than trans inclusion. For years, as trans UU leaders, Michael and I were asked to come teach UU congregations about trans people. People wanted to understand all the vocabulary. They wanted to learn what the right things to say were. They wanted to feel a sense of mastery over this new, unfamiliar terrain to them. And we got really tired. Because although as educators we love helping people understand things, going around doing Trans 101 trainings wasn't changing the things that keep us from finding a UU home. It was helping a lot of people feel like they intellectually understood trans people, but they still joyously sang songs about brothers and sisters and continued to misgender every single youth who came out as trans or non-binary within their congregation, and didn't make any changes to their women's group or their annual men's retreat. Their welcome was still conditional on trans UUs looking a certain way, speaking a certain way, acting a certain way, and honestly, being willing to betray parts of ourselves in order to fit in. So we created a course that helps people really engage with the depth of what's required if we're serious about welcome. The course takes you on a journey, starting with the theological grounding for welcome, this denomination and your congregation's gender history, and your own experience of gender. We offer expansive frameworks for how to think about gender and sexuality, talk about the lived experiences of trans people of many different races, abilities, ages, classes, and sexualities, and discuss trans spirituality. The course ends with a conversation about culture, about the differences between understanding welcome as a superficial friendliness and understanding welcome as a spiritual practice and an invitation to transform your heart, and about how to shift the culture of your congregation to be radically welcoming to all who are currently here and who want to be here. I hope that if you haven't engaged with the course yet, you will, and that it helps you live into what it means to be a welcoming congregation in this moment. The course has 6 sessions, each of which includes a pre-recorded lecture from me and Michael, resources to take things deeper, and reflection and discussion questions. You can take it as an individual anytime, or you can experience it as a group, which is what we recommend. It's really easy to engage with in these times of physical distancing. Go to uujaz.org for more info. If it doesn't sit right with you, that despite all your best intentions, there are people who don't feel fully welcome here, people among you right now, and people like me and mine, the question is, what are you willing to do to change that? How can you resist the urge to already have all the answers and be willing to ask more questions, try new things, and transform your heart? You see, being a welcoming congregation is not a static identity any more than being an ally is. It's not a sign you can put up or a box you can check or a statement you can make that means every LGBTQ person coming into your virtual or physical space will feel welcome. Every queer youth, every bisexual Black person, every low-income trans person, every gay immigrant, every asexual, agender Asian American, every disabled lesbian elder. Because being a welcoming congregation isn't something you are, it's something you do. Because welcome is a verb, it's an action, it's a spiritual practice. So I hope I can count on you to join me in this practice, because it is truly one of the most holy, heart-transforming, and world-changing things that we can do together. Amen, Ashe, Aho, and blessed be.
Next is our closing hymn on video from the Teal Hymnal, number 1023, Building Bridges. I think you'll really like this.
Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, sisters, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, sisters, we can make such sweet harmony.
Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you, will you reach out to me?
I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, sisters, Sisters, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. With all of our voices and all of our visions. With all of our voices and all of our visions. Sisters, we can make such sweet harmony.
Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you.
I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions. Sisters, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions. Sisters, we can make such sweet harmony. Sisters, we can make such sweet harmony. Sisters, we can make such. Sisters, we can make such sweet harmony. 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 Hey.
Woo! Air 5.
Lay it out.
Alex will offer closing words now.
Our closing words come from Reverend Joe Cherry, also from the wonderful book Voices from the Margins, called Prayer for Living Intention. If we have any hope of transforming the world and changing ourselves, we must be bold enough to step into our discomfort, brave enough to be clumsy there, loving enough to forgive ourselves and others. May we, as a people of faith, be granted the strength to be so bold, so brave, and so loving. Go in peace.
Janine Gelsinger from UU Jazz will extinguish the chalice now. And after that, you will see the words for extinguishing the chalice together for us to read on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Janine will stay on in the main Zoom room to answer any questions that you may have about Granite Peak's welcoming congregation recertification process. To remain in the main room, simply ignore the invitation to join a breakout room. Thank you and have a great Sunday.